few weeks beforehand and do their best during the exam. And these people then end up having the same grades as people who cheat. And I see that as completely unfair. So these are the reasons why we decided that the only way we're going to control this horrible, I am recording now, yeah, because I want this to be recorded. So the only reason why we thought about doing that is because I wanted to protect those people and make sure those people don't get unfairly treated by people who cheat, okay? So that's the main, thank you, Reem, that's the reason why we thought about doing exams online, okay? Now, the exam online, the impetus behind it is to cut the cheating, but also to address the unfairness of people who are doing things and getting results that they don't actually deserve because they cheated. Whereas other people who worked hard get results, and they have sometimes results that are lower than the people who cheated. It's an unfair situation. So I'm not going to remedy that unfair situation by creating another unfair situation where the boys get examined online and they get an easier exam than people who are coming face to face. That would defeat the object of the exercise, okay? The object of the exercise is fairness. If I'm going to have boys do exactly the same exam as people face to face, then it's unfair. So I haven't really addressed the problem. So the idea of boys doing it online was the boys were going to get purely short answer questions, right? So they won't get, because with short answer questions, I can tell when somebody has cut and pasted something or when two people have copied from each other, because I can see the text and I can prove it when I take it to the Dean of Student Affairs and say, look, these people cheated because the text is exactly the same. Okay, so then I can prove it. So people who were going to do it online were going to have only short answer questions, no MCQs. Whereas people who were doing it face to face were going to have pure MCQs, which means that it's fair. So they're doing it face to face because I can see them. They won't be able to cheat. It's okay to do it and to do MCQs. Whereas those who I can't see and could possibly cheat are going to do short answer questions. Do you understand that? So I wasn't going to address an unfair situation with another unfair situation. Sharina, you're not hearing me. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying or not. Are you understanding what I'm saying? You didn't hear what I said. No, did you understand what I'm saying about the different types of exams that people have? Those online will have a different type of exam to those who are face to face. What? Okay. So that was the whole idea. The whole idea is justice, fairness, so that people who are cheating get caught out and people who don't cheat get the right result and the right mark. That's the whole point of it, okay? And when I said to people right at the beginning of the class, from day one, I said to people that we are here, we're supposed to be not only learning the content of the subjects that we're learning, but also we're learning how to be professional, good human beings. University is not just about a certificate. If you think that's what it's about, then you're mistaken, or you won't really experience you're supposed to have from university. University is supposed to be about you becoming a better human being. So when you go out there, you're going out there with integrity, and people can trust the certificate you have. And I don't say this because I kind of like the sound of my own voice, or I enjoy saying these things. And I say this because it is a thing and it's a problem, and we have to rise above it. Now, I know that some people find things difficult because of the English language. That is why I say to people, I give you always at the end of each class, the last 15 minutes, you can ask me any questions you want. And I can even answer in Arabic if you want. Okay? But people don't take that opportunity. People don't ask questions. People don't stay behind. So there's nothing I can do about that. All I can do is offer you the opportunity. Shirina, can you stop commenting, please? Okay, so that's how, so Shirina, can you stop commenting, please? So that's the whole issue, right? That's what the whole problem is about, okay? So now, however, having said all that, I'm going to give you one last chance. I'm going to give the whole class one last chance to see if people are going to be self-respecting, respectful to themselves and to their colleagues and to society in general, and to God, really, because cheating is a crime, a sin. This is the last chance I'm going to give you. Shirina, can you stop? I'm gonna in a minute gonna kind of cancel you if you carry on commenting. Are you hearing me? Can you hear what I'm saying when I say stop commenting? When I ask you to ask questions, you can then ask questions. You're obviously not understanding what I'm saying. When I finish what I'm saying, then you can ask questions. But all these interruptions are not helpful. So, where was I? So the idea, so one more chance, and I've spoken to my colleagues, senior colleagues, and so on. One more chance. If you prove yourselves to be, and I'm here talking only to those who cheat, right? Obviously, forgive me, you guys who don't, right? I always keep feel really guilty for addressing this thing to the whole class when I know some of you are honest, hardworking people. And so forgive me if I'm saying this to you. When I say you, I don't mean you guys. I mean people who cheat, right? So this is the last chance for people who do cheat. I am going to now have the whole class doing it online. I'm going to have a mixture of MCQs and short answer questions. But if I discover there's cheating going on in this midterm, then obviously the final is definitely face-to-face, and there's going to be more short answer questions than MCQs, right? Because again, with short answer questions, you can't cheat as much. So this is your chance to rise above those temptations and become honest human beings, those of you who are otherwise, okay? So we're going to have the whole class now doing it online. We're going to delay the time of the exam to next week, but this is the last chance for people who would normally cheat. The last chance for you. If I discover, and I know I've got my ways of discovering how people cheat in the exam. If I find that you have cheated, then that's it. The next exam is definitely face-to-face, and that's the university rules. And it will have more questions that are short answers, which means that that's more discoverable in terms of any cheating behavior, right? Everybody else, do you understand what I'm saying? Other than Shirino, who I will address in a minute. Does everybody else understand what I'm saying? Okay, all right. Put your hand up. I want to make sure that everybody understands what I'm saying. Put your hand up if you understand what I'm saying.
Wait, Doctor,
up, right?
Is the midterm not going to be this week?
Whoa, just wait a second, Abdul. I'll come back to you in a minute. Put your hand up if you understand what I'm saying. If you don't, just keep your hand down, that's fine. All right, about half the class, no more than half, 3/4 of the class understand. There's about a quarter who don't understand what I'm saying. All right, so those who don't understand what I'm saying, okay, thank you guys for those who responded. Those who don't understand what I'm saying, okay, guys, put your hands down, everybody now, please. Okay, everybody put your hand down. Okay, I'll put it down for myself. Right, so some people have questions now. Ask the questions, ask away. I think Abdullah had a question, yeah.
Sorry, my question was, the midterm is going to be postponed till next week. Is that what you said?
That's what I said, yeah. I'll give you the date in a minute. It will be next week, Wednesday.
Okay? Oh, and it's the same exact materials, right? From lectures 1 through 10.
Exactly the same material, exactly the same everything. It's except it's going to be online and it's going to be next week, okay?
Oh, okay, understood. Thank you.
Let me just hang on a sec. Let me just, I'm going to type it in that it's recorded so everybody knows. Section 5. Okay, so midterm will be on Wednesday, 27th, 11 online. Okay, anybody else have any other questions?
Yes, doctor, I have a question.
Yes,
about the short question answers. What if you have written the answer correctly, but in a different way? Would we still get the answer correct?
Absolutely. That's where you will get the mark. Is if you put it in your own words, that's where you get the full marks.
Yes,
but if you cut and paste, or if I see that it's cut and pasted or the exact wording, then it's not going to get the mark at all.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It has to be.
We won't get the mark right after the exam is done. You have to look over our answers.
Exactly. Yeah, I have to mark them all. I'll have to mark all the short answer questions myself. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you, doctor.
All right. Well, anybody else have any other questions? Salma. Yeah.
But doctor, what if like we memorize the word?
Yeah, if it's a technical word, fine. Yeah, absolutely. But if it's an explanation and I see that the explanation is in perfect English, when I know that most of you, obviously some do, some don't speak perfect, or if it's cut and paste, because I go into like there's a web thing that I do to check if it comes from another website, then you will get a 0 for the whole exam, not just for that point. So if you cheat on one question, you get a 0 for the whole exam.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but yes, technical terms, of course, they have to be kept the same. And I'm not going to penalize you for spelling. As long as I can read the answer, That's fine. I'm not an English teacher. I'm not going to be giving you lower the mark because of spelling or grammar. Okay? All right, any other questions? Okay. Right, Shirina, what's your problem? What's your questions? Is it all clear now? Shirina, you're writing lots of comments earlier. Is it all clear now? Nothing. Okay, fine. Guys, Sadim, guys, can you remind Sadim which lectures are covered? Can everybody remind Sadim which lectures are covered? 1 to 10. Thank you. There's a big fat email that was sent to everybody. Lectures 1 to 10. So read your emails, please. Okay. I'm at university, actually. Should be having the camera on. Okay. Right. Okay. So no more questions. This is the last chance, people. And again, anybody who, I have my ways, but anybody who wants to email me privately to tell me if there's any cheating going on, I would very much appreciate it. You're not going to be a snitch. You're going to be doing the community a service. You're going to be doing our bigger community a service, weeding out the cheats. All right. So I'm more than happy to receive emails of any untoward behavior. Okay. Okay. So let's carry on. Sensation and perception. Right. Where are we? Where are we? Now, people who were there from the beginning of the course should remember a little bit about sensation and perception. We did mention it briefly before. Can anyone remember what the difference was between sensation and perception? Can you speak? If it be possible, it'd be better to speak if you can, Marwan, as well. Yes, Abdu, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe sensation was just feeling a touch, hearing a sound, but perception is processing that information and pinpointing what it is exactly.
Excellent. Exactly. In a nutshell, that's it. In a nutshell, sensation is the physical energy that you receive from the environment, whether it's a sound wave coming into your ear, light wave going into your eye, molecules going up your nose, smell, food molecules in your tongue and in your mouth. Those, when they first impact on your sensory organs, those physical stimuli, that's sensation. When that information then travels to your brain and the brain works out what it is, oh, it's the ring of a bell, oh, it's the footsteps of a woman walking, oh, it's the bark of a dog, then working out what kind of sound it is, that's perception. That's it. Very good. Officially, the interpretation or the official kind of definition, but what we said is the actual meaning of it, is the detection of physical energy emitted or reflected by physical objects. It occurs when energy in the external environment or the body stimulates receptors in sensory organs. So those sensory organs, whether your ear, your nose, your eyes, they have receptors. These receptors pick up external stimuli and then send it to the brain. Perception is that information, once it reaches the brain, working out what it means, what it is that you're hearing, seeing, touching, feeling, etc. Right, which means if perception is dependent on interpretation of the brain, it means that perception can differ between one person and the next. So people can hear the same thing, but interpret it differently, right? Somebody who's like an excellent musician can hear an instrument or like a band and can tell the different types of instruments that are playing in that band, okay? You can hear not just one conglomeration of sound, but can hear different instruments, where somebody who maybe is not an expert in music just hears a bunch of sound, hears music in general. So one perceives each of the different instruments, the other just perceives a whole collection of sound, all being one thing. So perception means, because it's open to interpretation, people can perceive things differently. Also, people who are experts at things. So for example, I'm no expert at dates, but if I went to an old farmer who was a real expert at dates, if I see a date, I'll just see, doesn't matter what kind it is, I'll always see them all as the same thing. Whereas an expert will perceive different types of dates, different kind of trees where these dates comes from, but also maybe different areas where these dates come from. So they're able to perceive a lot more in that particular date than I would be able to, okay? Also, because sensation is dependent on interpretation, it means that you can perceive things differently in different times and different states. So when you were a child, for example, maybe you lived in a certain area and you were tiny, so everything looked really massive for you. And then you moved from that area later when you were an adult. If you came back and returned to that same area, you might perceive the area to be a lot smaller than you thought it was. Because at the time you were a child, everything was big. Now you're big, everything looks a lot more smaller than it did then. So you can perceive things differently from time to time. Also, the presence of other people can influence our perception. And we'll talk later about, in social psychology, about how the presence of other people can affect the way we see things. So maybe at a distance, it's not very clear. You think you see a car, and in that car, you think is a Mercedes. Whereas all your friends sitting in a cafe looking at the same car say, no, it's a BMW, actually. And you think, oh, okay, yeah, actually, oh, yeah, I see. It's, yeah, BMW. So your perception, you might even been right, and they're all wrong, but you tend to conform to the majority opinion, and that's what we tend to do. There's lots of experiments that show this. Okay, any questions so far about anything I've said? All right, guys, just do me a favor. If you have no questions, great, just keep quiet. If you have a question, raise your hand and speak. If you have a question, ask. If you don't, just keep quiet. Well, Reem says, could this be related to assimilation? Yeah, at some level. So, but assimilation, which bit? Let's just kind of be clear then. When you say, could this, what is this that you're referring to? When you say, could this be related to assimilation? What is this that you're talking about? Reem? Perception on certain things conforming definition of something.
I guess she was
Perception
referring to the Mercedes
group.
and BMW example.
Okay, so you're referring to the fact that the presence of other people can affect our perception of things. No, it's not assimilation. This is called conformity, because you have changed your that particular moment. You've changed your perception of what a car is, or that car of being a BMW instead of a Mercedes, but you haven't changed your schema. It's just for that moment. If there was no people there, or another time when you saw that from a distance again and there was nobody there, it would still be for you a BMW. Only changed your opinion because other people were there. So it's not related to assimilation. This is called group conformity, and we'll talk about it later. Okay, but well done for trying to draw a link to stuff we've done in the past. Good. Right. Okay, so I've got this nice little video that is pretty much a summary of our lesson today. It's a good kind of background. It's a schema. It builds a schema for you about sensation and perception. And then what we'll do is, after you've watched this video, we'll go through the different bits. We'll probably only cover sensation today. Okay, Marwan, you're ahead of the game. And Abdullah, there's always a competition, Marwan and Abdullah. And I think Abdullah got it right. All right, so let's watch this video. Once you finish watching it, come back here, and then we'll go into a bit more detail about the different types of sensation and the different things sensate. That's the kind of the verb. Okay, so let's watch that video and come back, and we'll pick it up from there. Again, type done when you're done. Right, so there's a few of you who have finished, not quite everybody, I don't think. Yeah, okay. So while we're waiting for the rest of the group to join us, does anyone have any questions about anything that was said? Obviously, I'm going to go through it in a bit more detail. It was just to set the scene for you and to build a schema for what's going to come, so you can hang these ideas onto this thing you've already established in your heads by now. Anyone have any questions? Okay. All right, so let's carry on then. So sensation. I suppose the first thing to say is where all this kind of comes from. Obviously, we knew about Wundt and his experiments, and how he was able to tell the difference between sensation and perception when he gave people stimuli and then asked them to tap or press a button when they felt something, and then asked them to press a button when they, not just press a button, sorry, to also explain what that thing was. And he found that it took longer to understand, than just to notice that it's there. Now, this whole area of studying the relationship between the physical environment and what goes on in your mind is called psychophysics, because it's psychology meeting physics, psychophysics. And the founder of this is a guy called Gustav Fechner, born in the early 19th century, died towards the end of it. He studied the relationship between, obviously, the stimuli and our ability to detect the stimulus. And he realized that actually there was something with our senses. We can't perceive, or we can't sensate everything. There's a level. There are things we can sensate and things we can't. And the point at which we start to experience something is called the absolute threshold. In other words, the minimum amount of that thing that we can pick up, that we notice. So what's the minimum amount of sound that needs to be there for us to notice that sound? That's called the absolute threshold. What's the minimum light or the minimum distance, a figure in the distance? What's the minimum, how far away does it have to be before we can, or how close does it have to be before we can notice it, right? Taste, what's the tiniest difference we can taste in say, a sugar in a glass of water, okay? Smell, what's the lowest amount that we can smell in the room, okay? So the absolute threshold is the point at which we start to notice something is there. The just noticeable difference, JND, is when something changes, what's the minimum amount of change that needs to be there for us to notice that a change has occurred? So for example, if we're holding two weights that are 1 kilo each, how much do I have to add to one weight before I notice that this weight is heavier? Is it 1 gram? Will I notice the difference in 1 gram? 10 grams? Will I notice the difference? 20 grams? So at what point do I notice the difference? That's called the just noticeable difference. Okay? You with me so far? Yeah, okay. At least Reem is, and so is Shamma and Iman. All right, 3 people are with me. That's good. 4 even. Okay. Now, in terms of this is a really old study, but it's useful. Okay? Abdullah as well. Okay, his hand up. He's definitely with me. All right, so this is a really old study, but it's kind of useful. In this study, this showed that what percent, like if over 50%, in other words, beyond chance. So over 50%, it means it's not just by guessing. So over 50% of the time, what can we detect? What's the absolute threshold? So they found that in terms of the eye, in terms of the visual sense, and we're talking here about a perfectly functioning human eye. A perfectly functioning human eye can notice a flame of a candle 30 miles away on a dark night. So a completely dark night, the human eye can see one single candle flame 30 miles away. Also, in terms of differentiating between different colors, the human eye can differentiate apparently between 300,000 different colors. So it can tell the difference between 300,000 different colors. Okay. The human ear has a range. The absolute threshold is between 20 kilohertz, 20 hertz, and 20,000 hertz. Okay. That's the kind of range for the human ear. And it can hear the ticking of a clock. We're not talking about big grandfather clock, a normal clock. The ticking of a clock, where am I? 2 feet away in a quiet room. Sorry, 20 feet, 2 feet, that's anybody can hear that. 20 feet away in a quiet room, it can hear the ticking of, that's the absolute threshold for the ear. In terms of taste, apparently we're able to taste 1 teaspoon of sugar in 2 gallons of water. So if you had 2 gallons of water with 1 teaspoon of sugar, another 2 gallons of water, no teaspoon of sugar, you will be able to tell that this one has a different taste to it. That's the absolute threshold for taste. In terms of feeling, apparently if you drop a wing of a bee above, from 1 centimeter above, you can notice, you can feel that wing of a bee landing. So that's the absolute threshold for the sense of touch. Okay, sounds like a human. No. These are normal humans, but obviously people who have quite good, sharp senses. All right, this is not like an old man like me with most of his senses blunted by years of abuse. We're talking about sharp-eyed, sharp-eared, but human beings. They're not superhuman. Okay, so that's the absolute threshold for the different senses. Okay, now this idea of transduction, and maybe the best thing to do is to describe it in this diagram. Okay, so she did mention it in the video, but let's go through it again. All right, so this is how it works in terms of moving on from sensation to perception. Okay, so if you imagine a coffee machine, right? Now, the coffee machine in the morning, you come down, if any of you have coffee machines, but you've seen it in films anyway. Coffee machine has a sound, it rumbles when it's making coffee, has a smell, it's producing that fresh coffee smell. You can see it because there's light reflecting of it. So the smell of it is entering your nose. the light is entering your eye and the sound of it is coming into your ears, right? So you can see it. So that, the actual particles that are floating, the vapor that's floating through the air to your nose, the sound vibrations that are going into your ear, the light waves that are going into your eye, these are called stimulus energy. These are physical stimulus energy that's impinging on your sensory organs. Now, once they enter the eye, or they enter the ear and enter the nose, then that physical energy is transformed into a neural impulse. In other words, the nerve cells then convert that energy into a electrochemical impulse. If you remember, we said that the nerve has it receives information and then it turns it into electrical energy all the way to the end of the nerve, where it releases a tiny chemical in the synaptic cleft, and then it's picked up by the next nerve, which then passes the message on to the next nerve and so on. That process is called a neural impulse. Now, during the neural impulse, we're still in sensation. Now, transduction happens when the physical energy is translated into a neural impulse. That's what we call transduction. So the transformation of the physical energy into a neural impulse, that's called transduction. Then when it reaches the brain, obviously the brain then works out what's going on. Oh, it's a coffee machine. It's not a car. It's not a radio. It's a coffee machine. When the brain does that, the brain now has perceived it, and that process of giving it a label, giving it what it is called coding. So transduction is the transformation of the physical energy into a neural impulse. Coding is the translation of the neural impulse into something perceptible, into a perception. That's called coding. Does that make sense? If it doesn't make sense, put your hand up. If it doesn't make sense, not if it does, if it doesn't make sense, put your hand up. Okay, and if it doesn't make sense to you, it probably means it doesn't make sense to other people, but they just haven't bothered putting their hand up. Yes, Sireen, do you want to elaborate at which part is not making sense?
Doctor, from the neural impulses, I didn't understand.
Okay, great. Well done, Reem, for asking a question. Stay there, stay there, stay there. Keep your mic on. So you mean from the neural impulse onwards, you didn't understand?
Yeah.
Okay, stay with me. So, I said that the energy is transferred into a neural impulse. So, for example, you touch something, right? At the end here, there's sensory receptors that pass information on, one nerve to the next it gets to your brain, okay? When it gets to your, obviously goes through the thalamus and then goes to your brain, to your occipital lobe. When it gets there, then the brain says, I am touching my other finger. When the brain recognizes that I'm touching my other finger, even if I shut my eyes, I can feel I'm touching my other finger. When the brain recognizes I'm touching my other finger, not I'm touching my phone, right? The fact that it recognized I'm touching my finger, not my phone, that's called coding. It coded that stimulus as a touch of the finger, not the touch of the phone. Coding is when you give the feeling a name, a label, a code. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
So neural impulses, you said something about transduction, something like that.
Okay, so stay with me. So that's the coding part. Transduction, if you go at the beginning of this diagram, can you see there's an arrow going to the person's eye?
Yeah.
Okay, and you can see waves going, you can see like a smoky smell coming in, right?
Yes.
Now, when that physical energy, right? So for example, in my eye, light hits my eye, it goes to my retina, which is at the back of my eye. At the back of my eye, there are things called rods and cones, which are like little cells. They pick up the light coming in, and then there's a nerve, optic nerve, at the back of those cones, rods and cones. It then transfers, it's called transduction, transduces. Yeah. It then changes that light wave into a nerve impulse. Instead of a light wave, it becomes a nerve impulse. The nerve then picks it up. It's like in relay, you're running, you take a baton one.
Yes.
You're running in relay, you take a baton and you run with it. So the nerve picks up, there's light, and it changes the signal from a light signal to a nerve signal. When it changes it from a light, Transduction.
It's still a sensation, right?
It's still a sensation, yes. Transduction is still a sensation, yeah.
Okay, and coding is perception.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Well done, Reem, for asking. All right, okay. Anyone else? No? All right, that's fine. We'll leave it there. We'll do perception next time. So don't forget, your exam is next week, Wednesday, last chance. And people, please let me know, if there's any untoward behavior. I'll keep reminding you actually until the day of the exam to do that. But for now, we're done today. If anyone has any questions, I'm here. You can ask. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. You can leave. All right, fine. You're welcome, Shamma. Yes, Abdullah.
Doctor, just so I can be clear, there is no Group A, Group B midterms all going to be
There's
on the
no group
27th?
A. Everybody will be online 27, like we did the quiz.
All right. Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, all right. Reem al-Zahir, you ask, the thalamus also sends messages to the brain, right? That's Reem. Yeah, is that your question still, Reem? Okay. The thalamus is inside the brain. When a nerve signal comes, when it enters the brain, the first, well, except the smell, all the other senses, when they enter the brain, they go through the thalamus. And then the thalamus says, this is a visual signal. So you go to the visual area. This is a touch signal. So you go to the touch area. This is a hearing signal. So you go to the hearing area. So the thalamus is like a relay station. It sends the signals to be interpreted according to where they're coming from. Yeah, it's like a gateway. Does that make sense? All right. Okay, fine. All right. Yes, Salma.
Doctor, I want to ask, like, the nerve system, should we study it like deeply or from the lectures?
You have to know everything on the slides.
Okay.
Yeah. And obviously there's that video with the 17 areas. You have to know those 17 areas.
And the pictures
Yeah.
as well, like, should we memorize the pictures?
Yeah, so what the structure is and where it is and what it does. Yeah.
Okay, doctor.
Yeah. Please pass that message on to all your friends as well in your WhatsApp.
Yeah,
group.
okay.
So it's important.
Okay, I will.
Thanks. Doesn't matter, both are okay. Wilhelm is the German spelling. He was German, so Wilhelm is the German pronunciation. But if you say William, that's fine too. I'm not going to penalize you for saying William, but his actual name is Wilhelm because he was German. The English anglicized version of Wilhelm is William. Okay. Is that Salma again? Mira, yeah. Mira Sinani.
Doctor, for psychological development, will we have to describe the attachment styles, like know the descriptions?
Of course, you'll have to understand those. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
You'll have to know those. Yeah. Everything, basically, the rule is everything in the slides you could get a question on. Every single slide you might get a question on because you're not really revising from the book. So the least we can do is get you to understand everything in the slide. All right. So definitely everything. If it's in the slide, it may be in the exam. That's the rule. Okay. It might be helpful next time if you have any questions to do with the exam to ask those questions at the beginning so that the rest of the class can hear the answers, because I'll probably get emails asking me exactly the same questions that you asked now. So if you can pass that information on to the rest of your colleagues, that would be good. Okay. All right.